Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming out to 1 Million Cups Westminster again this morning. Thank you to everyone on Facebook Live if you're joining us virtually. I'm Graham Dodge, the Executive Director of Magic. We're a community sponsor for this program. We do workforce education, economic development for the city of Westminster. Things like classes for training cybersecurity. We are leading the Autonomous Corridor project in the city. And other things like that. Cool tech stuff, building on top of the gigabit fiber investment in our high-speed broadband that we have thanks to Ting in the city. So we'll get things underway here in a minute. I just want to thank our sponsors, our community sponsors and coffee sponsors, Furnace Hills Coffee and Dave Baldwin, who came out today. And if you're on Facebook, then you're missing out on the delicious Burundi coffee that I just had, which was really, really like sweet, like a natural sweetness to it. And I don't put sugar in my coffee, so it's like really nice to have like a sweet coffee without sugar. And then what was it? Tulumas Beach? Is that
Tulumas Beach?
Tulumas Beach coffee. Anyway, if you don't come out in person, you don't get to try the Furnace Hills coffee. Are we still doing the virtual discount? Do you want to?
Yes.
So if you can't, for whatever reason, get out here, you can still go to furnacehillscoffee.com. and use the discount code 1MC Westminster, all one word, to get 25% off your entire online order. So we're still extending that pandemic offer, if you will, in this sort of post-pandemic in-person hybrid version of 1 Million Cups. So thank you again to Dave Baldwin and Furnace Hills Coffee for doing that. We also have a new food sponsor, I guess you'd call it, with Genie Bird Bakery, who once again has brought out great baked goods for everybody for free. So check out Genie Bird Baking Company as well. Both Furnace Hills and Genie Bird are right here on Main Street in downtown Westminster. All right, so I'm going to hand it over to our other organizer here, Julia Snap, to kick us off. Thank you.
All right, good morning, everyone, and to everyone on Facebook. My name is Julia Snap, and I'm going to go over our core mission and the pillars of our program. I think we had a great time last weekend hearing from Switchbridge and all the other exciting things happening in our community. So I'm just going to go over what we're all about. So our mission here at 1MC Westminster is to lower the barrier for access to education, resources, and connections for entrepreneurs. Without the pillars of our core program, our mission cannot succeed. So what are we looking for? We're looking for presentations, not pitches, and connection, not networking. We're really looking to get to know your business and the challenges that you face so that we can connect you to all of the resources that we have here in this room and that we have elsewhere in the community. We are for the community, by the community. Nobody has ownership of 1MC Westminster, and nobody is paid to do 1MC Westminster. We are radically and intentionally inclusive. I think I can speak for all the organizers here. We love seeing fresh faces and hearing about all the great things happening in our community. So go online and do a presentation. I'll be doing one in 2 weeks. So we meet every week, Wednesdays at 9 a.m. We have 2 presenters whenever possible. Presenters' organization should be less than 5 years old and willing to ask for help, because we end every presentation with what can we as a community do to help you. And here's our organizers, Graham Dodge, who you met, Russ Hammett, Val Giovanni, John Wheatman, Tina Thomas, myself, Julia Snap, and Gabby Rose. And with that, I'll hand it back to Graham.
Thank you, Julius. All right, so I think, Max, you were here first today, so why don't you go ahead and present next? I think you can just overtake the screen. I'll try. And also, thank you to Startup Portal for hosting once again. Thank you, Rick, and Startup Portal.
Yeah.
I can get the switch. I think it should. It's supposed to automatically kick me off, but let me just double check. All right, hold on. Okay, maybe try that.
Shark Week.
I think that should go away in a few seconds. Come on, wait.
Taking a look, Gabby.
Most of that accounting.
There we go.
So my name is Max Weeder. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Counterintuitive Cooking, and I'm going to talk to you about our product, Sous Chef, delicious meals prepared for you and not by you. So currently, the problem is that people spend about 17 days a year in the kitchen doing meal preparation, going grocery shopping, actually making the meals, and then cleaning up afterwards. Alternatively, they'll eat out, but spend about 325% more eating out than eating the exact same meal eating in. And obviously, you can have a quick microwave frozen meal, but you get that kind of soggy mix of boiling hot, super cold meals, which is not ideal. And you could skip a meal, but my wife, who works with eating disorders, would not be happy about that. So let's take a little deeper dive into the problem. So we did a survey of around 1,000 people, and we found that 94% of them found these problems consistent with wanting to reduce their time. So of that, 54% of them found that it would be valuable, either extremely or somewhat valuable. And on average, they spent 8 hours a week doing meal preparation. So there's a whole slew of other...
Oh no.
Did we lose internet?
Check in.
Yeah, just try to reconnect, I guess.
That's not him. Oh no, he's back.
Oh, the TV lost connection?
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
He's back.
No? Oh, it's casting. No, it's casting the wrong source. There we go. Let's try this one more time. There we go. Yep, so these are the big things that people had issues with, time commitment being the biggest one. So what is our solution? We call it Sous Chef. It's the automated curing of food. It's both a freezer and an oven in one device, and it will let you autonomously move the food from the freezer to the oven without any human involvement. So as they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words, so 60 frames per second, you can do the math. So this is Sous Chef. It's about 18 inches wide, 15 inches high, 12 inches deep, so it fits perfectly on your counter right underneath your upper cabinets. So as you load your meals, they're scanned by the device and instantly loaded up to your profile in the cloud. And that's about all the work you have to do. From there, you can simply go on your app or use a smart home device to select the meal you want. All the cook time, duration, whether it needs browning, broiling, slow cooking, all of that's built into the device. All the macronutrients are auto-tracked, so if you link it to Fitbit or MyFitnessPal, you get all that automatically tracked. And then you simply just get a notification when it's ready. You can start it immediately and it'll take its time. You can set a future time for it to be ready when you want it, or you can use our built-in AI that we handily call Sue to have it smartly prepared for you, which means if you're at work, you can go ahead, pick which dinner you want, and then if you stay late at work, get stuck in traffic, it takes all that into account, and when you walk in the door at home, it's ready for you. So there's a lot of different use cases for this, and every time I pitch this, everyone wants to hear their use case. So that's why I have this quick slide here just to show you we're taking it all into account. But we're going to obviously have to hyper-focus our initial market, so that's what this next slide talks about. There's two main markets. The first one is single-occupant households. These are the people that already are the 86% consumers of frozen meals. So it's a natural transition to enter that market. We're aiming to do a 5% penetration in that market over 5 years. Roughly 200,000 people in that first 5 years. A secondary market is seniors. So this is both retirement communities and aging in place. So this is people who either shouldn't be standing in the kitchen for long periods of time, their adult children are taking care of them, or they're simply worried about leaving kitchen appliances on, oven, things like that. So how do we make money off of this device? So first off, phase one of a 4-phase program. We make money off direct consumer sales. We're selling a product, and that product brings in margin. Simple, straightforward. Second thing is the actual meals themselves are recurring revenue. So we don't plan to make the meals ourselves. We're planning to outsource that to anyone that wants to join our ecosystem. Think Keurig, when you can get Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, your favorite coffees in Keurig. We're going to do the same thing with food. We collect a small royalty off of that, and then we're also going to do sales directly on our website, so you can get your meals directly delivered to your door, so we'll collect the logistics fee on top of that. That allows recurring revenue off that, which allows us to lower the price of the actual product over time. Once we hit a critical mass of users, the data analytics comes in. One thing that is not available right now is who's eating at exactly what time and all the details. someone at a grocery store knows that 10,000 units of Stouffer's mac and cheese was sold, but who bought that? When are they eating it? Did it just go to waste and be expired? And what competitor did they buy? Well, we're collecting all that data completely passively, and we anonymize it so that your personal information is safe. And then finally, we have an optional phase 4 here where we actually do start creating top-tier food on our own and selling that for direct profit. So why sous chef? So there's a couple other products out there that I'm going to use quotes here, call themselves smart kitchen appliances. The reason I use quotes is when you think of a smart house, you think of your ability to do it from your couch, from your phone, everything like that. And these appliances really, they're just the next iteration of the kitchen. They have Wi-Fi on it, they have barcode readers, but none of them truly give you autonomous robotic cooking. Well, mellow and soupy kind of, but that's different. It's kind of like a crock pot with it, you can start autonomously. Meal optionality applies another big one. That's the ability to not know what you want to eat ahead of time. Because we have the long-term cold storage, you can simply put meals in, and then a week later, a month later, you can pick your meal, and you have an option of 5 different meals. And that way you don't have to know what you want, you can really follow your cravings. So what we're doing right now is we're actually fundraising to launch our beta program. So I'm currently building our alpha prototypes. My wife is super happy that our dining room table is completely full of hardware. But in about a month, we'll have the first unit done, and we'll have 5 units done off that alpha line. We're currently raising $500,000. I actually just brought on a lead investor this past week to lead that round for us. And that's going to fund our beta production line, where then we'll bring in actual beta testers and food companies to get consumer feedback. At the same time, we're going to launch pre-sales around the same time later this year and start creating a backlog for inventory. Then we'll launch a much larger round to actually fund it, to bring it to market, and hopefully by holidays next year, you can have one and use it for Thanksgiving or Christmas. So financial projections, the fun part, but it's an eye chart. Key takeaways, we're targeting a $500 price retail for the actual product with an average meal price around $750. We hope to be profitable monthly by year 3 with an annual profitability by year 4. And the first 18 months, as I've kind of pointed out already, is a heavy draw on capital, which we're in currently, of getting the product to market. So this is our team. The 3 founders and our director of marketing. We have 10 years of work experience each, plus 7 degrees from Hopkins between the 4 of us. So that's about all I can say to that. I don't want to waste too much time about us. And then our extended team. So we actually, our 3 contractors is now 7 contractors who are helping us bring this to market. And then we have our advisors and our mentors here who come from the different diverse categories to help us fill in the full market team. So that's Sous Chef. You can check out our website. You can reserve yours today for just $20 down. And yeah, thank you for your time.
Awesome presentation. Thank you, Max. So, so you kind of described it as being a Keurig of cooking, and I noticed in the Keurig market, eventually they came up with like the reusable Keurig cups. Is that something you also foresee
I have
happening?
already ordered them and have them. So
Yeah,
one of our key things is to also work with the food companies to provide recipes that would work in the reusable trays, so that if you follow that recipe exactly, the device already has it in the database. So instead of having to go through and guess what the cook time and cook temperature is, you can just select it from an option saying, I follow this recipe. So when you load your meal, that's an option.
Oh, really? So you could you reuse your own trays and make your own food?
Yeah, so we are going to be selling reusable trays that work in our device, so that when it gets scanned, it's identified as one of our reusable trays, and then you simply pick what you put in it.
Wow, that's great. Anybody else have questions? We have questions. If you're on Facebook Live, please go ahead and ask questions in the comments section. We're looking at that too. Scott Singleton from Business Employment Resource Center. Scott.
Sure, I'm just interested in the technology. You mentioned microwaves, air fryers are pretty popular these days. Crock pots have been around forever. So what kind of technology is actually doing the cooking?
So it's really just a standard convection oven that does the cooking. It's a small compartment with some interesting technology that we patented in there that allows it to do forced air cooking and then actually have a heating element that exposes it to do browning and broiling. But again, that's all baked into the metadata of the food. So if you're doing cookies, the heating element will never actually be exposed to the food, but if you're doing, say, a lasagna, It'll do forced air cooking for majority of it and then expose it at the end to kind of crisp the top. That way you're getting that nice, deep, even cooking and that browning crunchiness that you can't get with a microwave. We're not trying to really prevent you from doing other cooking methods. We're just trying to save you time and give you good quality food. So we don't expect you to replace your microwave. You know, you have to reheat peas and things like that if you're cooking at home, and same with your oven. But we want to give you an option because usually around Wednesdays, Thursdays is when people hit the wall and they end up eating out. Well, this will let you save money with that same convenience of eating out, but staying at home in a more cost-effective and nutritional manner.
Any other questions?
No, this sounds fun, and it's not nuking the food, so to speak.
Correct.
It's not the negative ion
Yep.
microwave technology. It's like you said, forced air and heating element. I'm curious what your price point is initially going to be on this,
On the production or the sale?
on the sale to the
Around
public?
500. So that was on that side. So we're
Around 500.
probably going to come in at 500, but there's a lot of research that we're still doing on whether or not we actually just drop the price by 50%, sell it at cost to get more people into the market.
Right.
When I'm a mentor in residence at Johns Hopkins Tech Ventures, and they have the I-Corp program that they run. And one of the examples in the opening pitch deck of the I-Corp program is they talk about Juicero. And Juicero as this sort of this fumble in terms of a venture-backed smart cooking, not cooking in this case, juicing.
Yep.
But the criticism being it was over-engineered and overpriced.
Yep.
How do you, from the perspective of going to venture capitalists right now, in a post-Juicero world, how do you overcome that concern?
Yeah, so Juicero gets brought up every single time.
Right.
So they raised, I think it was $150 million to build an appliance that would cost $2,000 to purchase, and then you had to buy the special pods that work with it. And then shortly after they came out, someone went on YouTube with the pod, placed it on the counter, walked away, came back 15 minutes later, and squeezed into a container and said, "This tastes the exact same as using this device."
Right.
So what they did is they marketed their entire thing around, we make the perfect juice if you use our pod. And it turned out that was not the case. Ours is different. We're saying we give you convenience. No other appliance can currently do this, of offer you freezer to oven cooking with meal optionality on the fly. Could you take our meal and pop it into the oven? Absolutely. We're not saying that's not an option, but we're not designed around that. We're designed around the convenience factor. We control the database, we control the cooking time and cook temperature. And so, that's our key thing that differentiates us from Juicero. We're not about just the product, we're about the entire ecosystem around it, that convenience factor. The delivery to your door, the auto tracking your macronutrients, and then the data that we can provide on the back end back to the food companies so they can figure out who is eating it. So there's a lot more to it than just simply we make the perfect meal type thing. We're not even making the meals ourselves, other people are. So that's kind of what I normally say to that. The other thing is we didn't invent any new technology for this. So we patented this, it's a utility patent, but it's all commercial off the shelf. There's no new technology developed for this. The most innovative aspect of this is that we use an aerospace grade insulation. So similar to how you have Velcro in all your shoes, but NASA spent millions of dollars to invent Velcro, same thing. They created this insulation that it's 10 millimeters thick, and you take a blowtorch to one side and put your hand on the other and you don't feel it. That's what we're using in this. It's commercially viable now at a price point that lets us do this.
That's awesome. Excellent response. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Any other questions?
I have a follow-up. My question is, your target market, you have the single household, which makes a lot of sense. The second group, the senior population, I guess my concern would be, is it easy to operate that if you're using a smartphone and the senior population maybe not necessarily totally educated and able to use smart technology? Is that going to be a problem?
Yep, so there's two different answers to that. So one is the idea that the adult children who are taking care of their parents would start the meal and simply say, call mom, say, "Mom, I started your meal, it'll be ready in 20 minutes, you'll hear the sous chef ding when it's ready." The second is we are going to plan to make a senior-friendly version of the app that's simply just 4 giant or 5 giant buttons with a picture of the meal, and you just press it, and that's it. So the idea is to simplify it for that user interface. And there's a couple different apps out there for senior communities that we've been talking to already of how to integrate this and simplify it.
Will there be local controls for cooking?
Yeah, so there's going to be a touchscreen on here. So if you're in the kitchen, you'll be able to press a button and have it start cooking that. So you don't have to pull up your phone, open the app, or use a Google Home or Alexa.
We have a question back here.
Yeah, I just had a question about serving size.
Yep.
So do you have Are you having multiple serving sizes?
You're right. So the initial market is, as I said, single occupant household. So the food trays are 5 by 7 by 1.5 inches. So it's tall enough to fit a chicken pot pie, big enough to fit 5 to 6 cookies. So it all honestly depends on the meal. Some meals, like if you put a steak in there, that would be a single serving. But if you put cookies in there, that's probably 2 people. Brownies, probably even 3 people. They're not small size meals, but you know, it all depends on the actual meal. And again, that's up to the food provider, right? They can, since they're the ones ultimately selling the meal, they can say for 2, for 1, and things like that. I know.
So I'm assuming, based off you mentioned that your wife works, sounds like in nutrition or along those lines. Are there going to be different offerings as far as nutritionally sound or?
Yep, so again, because we're not controlling food, we're opening the ecosystem to everyone. So we're talking to a whole slew of food companies from kosher to keto to vegan to your typical just frozen food companies. So honestly, it's whoever wants to join our ecosystem can do it, and whatever food offering. So we don't want to close it down, we want to open to everyone. So we want to have regional-based food where restaurants can get them and be within the local region and maybe even expand outside the local region through our system.
Julius, Matt?
I got 2 questions. So first, as a fellow entrepreneur and with a family of 5, we eat out way too often. So I love the idea. I'm curious if you about your business model. If you mentioned it's a cost per meal. Have you considered like a subscription model? Or?
Yes. So think about Amazon Subscribe and Save, where it's just automatic renews. You get an email saying, "Hey, your renewal's coming up." We're going to do something similar to that, but a lot of our competitors lock you in, where you're locked in for 6 months, and you know it leaves a bad taste in your mouth if after a month or 2 you're like, "This isn't actually worth it," but then you're stuck paying for another 4 months. We don't want to do that, so we essentially will set it up where there'll be auto renewal. Because everything's tracked in the ecosystem, say you're burning through it quickly, it'll know. So if you ordered 10 meals and you've used 7, it'll say, hey, you only got 3 left, and at your current pace, you probably should reorder to get some more in time. And again, on the flip side, if you're taking too long, it'll say, hey, your food's expiring in a week. You may not want to waste that. So there's this very cost-conscious or conscientious aspect of the user experience of not wasting food and not running out of food.
Nice.
I'd buy it for that aspect of it.
Yeah, right.
Your food's going to go to waste. Eat it.
Yeah. Second question. As people start to head back into the office, is there a maybe like larger commercial model that?
Yes.
Because I mean,
So that's on my full size deck. This is the 6-minute pitch. So this is our MVP, all right, our initial entry to market. We already are in work on designing a family version of this as well as a vending machine style version of this.
Yeah.
That's more business oriented for that type of thing.
Oh, that's a great idea. Rick Leinbach from Star Portal.
Well, the one thing I'll say is, I guess post-COVID now, you do have market validation. A good example is my wife at their nursing home. They were literally giving seniors 3 meals at a time to eat. So this is something for the future planning. Nice validation. So getting into the numbers a little bit, you're doing crowdfunding, correct?
We have closed the crowdfunding. So the crowdfunding finished. We raised $60,000 through crowdfunding.
Okay, gotcha. In the crowdfunding, what was your valuation?
So we did a safe.
Okay.
We set a market cap of $2 million with a 20% discount.
Okay, oh, very nice.
That's reasonable.
So, yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. And now you have a lead investor?
Yep, so the 500K round that we're doing, we just brought on a lead investor. I don't know if I'm supposed to announce it yet, since I'll let him control that. But he's working with us to bring on other investors to close out this round, so that we can hopefully launch the beta production on beta testing later this year.
And I guess listening to everything you're saying, my question is $5 million next round enough?
Probably not.
Yeah.
So the reason I have $5 million on there, it's really wet thumb in the air. It's all based on guidance. If we launch pre-sales and blow it out of the water and have 10,000 orders, no. But at the same time, we'll have income from that. We'll have validation of size, and it'll make debt financing easier. The goal is to do as much debt financing and offset that cost with the actual income from pre-sales as much as possible, so that we're not giving up as much equity to do that larger round. But that could mean a $10 million round, it could mean a $5 million round. It really is all based on that guidance.
Debt financing isn't cheap either, but...
No, but that no matter what, when you're doing a hardware product, the reason people call hardware hard is because it's capital intensive.
I think a hidden market for you, actually, even though it's single household, it's designed for single households or single occupancy households, is the housewife who is cooking for everybody but never has time to eat for herself, kind of, or house husband.
Yeah, that on that like third or fourth slide with the tree of all the different options.
Okay,
That was on there. We have teenagers who come home and their parents are still at work. We have families with new children, right, where you have a child and you're alternating taking naps and trying not to wake the child. You're eating meals separately. I'm going to be there in 6 weeks, so I was there. When I first started this product, I had no kid, and now my second one's on the way. And I can tell you, I wish I had this when my first child came, and now my second one's going to be here in 6 weeks, and I'm planning to have this first one done in 4 weeks so I can use it.
And for developmental disabilities too, for parents of kids with developmental disabilities, if they're able to remotely control it and set it, that seems to be.
Just a question in regards to management of expectations. As I'm thinking through the use of this new appliance, it strikes me that there's still a planning component that's needed. So it's more like a slow cooker than it is a nuker, a microwave.
Yes and no, right? So it's all dependent on the meal, right? So I bring up cookies because that's a good example. That's 10 minutes. So that's easy enough. If it's mac and cheese, that might be 20 minutes, and a lasagna might be 45. It's very dependent. It's whatever's perfect for the food, but that's where the AI comes into play. So you can set it to be ready in the future. So if you're home and you want food, you can say start it now, and it'll just say it'll be ready in 20 minutes. If you're getting up in the morning and you take 45 minutes to shower, do your hair, makeup, get dressed, and you want a hot breakfast, have my frittata ready in 45 minutes. If it only takes 20, well, it'll start it at the right time to make sure you can have that hot breakfast. So it's really versatile on that. Yeah, there's still some planning, but we try to take as much out of that with built-in AI. So if you're watching a TV show, say, or the Super Bowl, right, and you say, well, I want hot wings at halftime, it'll take that into account based on live data from the game.
Gotcha. And then if it's like, it says it's ready, and I'm just not, I'm going to be another half hour, it'll be able to keep the food warm.
Exactly. So we can leverage the heating element to warm it, but we're only going to do that within a certain amount of time, so we won't dry out your meal and things like that.
Okay. So it's intuitive like that.
Yes.
It's my personal chef.
Yeah.
I love it.
You should sell them.
I'm on board.
So we only have time for the last question, which is, what can our community do to help you?
So right now, the biggest thing that we're looking for assistance with is connection with people who want to join our ecosystem from a food standpoint. Getting that out there, people who want to create meals for our beta test program as a trial for themselves, joining for the full scale. We are, from a production standpoint, we have an initial run production company set up in Baltimore City that's going to do our initial run. Once we hit a critical mass, we'll have to open up our own manufacturing facility. That's probably a couple of years down the road. Personally, I don't want to commute for work, so I would like to keep it in this local area. And in general, Maryland is a good place. Between 95, 70, the airport, the port. It's a really good hub from a logistics standpoint for shipping things out and bringing in parts from overseas.
And for those food partners, can they expect some sort of like SDK equivalent where they get like an oven and some trays and they get to experiment with?
Yeah, so that would be part of the in between the alpha and beta is one of the alpha units I'm using would be going to food partners so they can test it out, put recipes in there, and figure those details out.
Very cool.
Excellent.
All right, everyone, thank you very much. Thank you, Matt. So we're just going to take a quick couple minutes here to get set up for our next presenter. And please, in the meantime, grab some Furnace Hills coffee or Bird Bakery baked goods.
I don't think we'll have shortage of those.
If you don't have those at home, it's too bad.
I'm half.
Yeah, just look at me and say, like you're talking to me, like you're reminding me of what you told me 2 years ago when I first met and when we were doing it.
Somewhere, I just don't know where. But I'm sure you know.
CBA or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
You know they're starting to get back together.
I heard that, and I'm excited. My business is growing on so much that
Thanks again, everybody, for joining on Facebook Live. Please don't forget you can ask questions in the comments there if you're watching.
This is something you didn't say. This is something.
So please welcome our next presenter, Kristen Zimmer from Windchimes.
Hi, good morning. Hi, Kristen. Hi. My name is Kristen Zimmer. I'm a certified senior advisor and owner of Windchimes. I have a quick slide just to give you a little bit of my background. I think there's value in sharing my credentials as an authority at the senior living space. So as I mentioned, I am a I'm a senior certified senior advisor. I am an Argentum senior living sales counselor, so I have to hold those two designations. I'm finishing up my advanced certificate on aging from Hopkins. It's a 2-year program, but 2 kids later and a company. I'm closing in on it, but we're coming up on 4 years, but we're getting there. And I have almost 15 years of industry knowledge. I did a couple years in skilled nursing and long-term care. The majority of my career before opening Windchimes was in standalone assisted livings and rental continuum, so the independent and assisted living rental options. In the community, I sit on the boards for the Habitat for Humanity of Carroll County, as well as the Senior Provider Information Network. I'm on the planning committee for Taste of Carroll, which supports Bridging Life, which was formerly Carroll Hospice, as well as a community educator for the Alzheimer's Association, and I run a women's group at the ARC, a monthly women's group, and I hope to get back to that once we're fully out of COVID. So it's not lost on me that when I tell people I own a senior living consulting agency that their eyes start to glaze over. And usually I'm like, oh, nice. Like, clearly I have no idea what that means. So I was interested to sort of ask the group, if anyone wants to volunteer, what senior living, what that term means to them.
It means hopefully being independent, but having resources near you if you need them.
Yeah, that's great. Anyone else?
I assume it means that you're also sort of cohabitating with other seniors in some sort of community situation.
Yeah, that's great. And both of those are right. It's a very general term that encompasses housing communities and long-term care services that support seniors as they age. So it's a little ambiguous and kind of covers everything, right? So who needs senior living? So according to HHS, about 70% of folks 65 and older are going to require some kind of long-term care services in their lifetime. So you couple that with the fact that over 10,000 people are turning 65 every day, you can imagine there's a lot of people who are going to be requiring senior living long-term care services. And you can't really talk about the senior without talking about the adult child. The previous presentation ties into this so well. Who was affected. So about 1 out of every 4 individuals between the ages of 45 and 65 are caring for an aging adult, and about 1 in 5 of those folks who are 65 and older are caring for an aging adult. Usually it's a parent, but for those folks 65 and older, that could be a spouse or a much older parent. And while this can be a labor of love, according to AARP, this kind of caregiving can create a chronic stress experience, leaving the caregiver feeling isolated at work and in their communities, as well as unsure of where to go for support and services. So I'm going to go through the next couple of slides kind of quickly. I don't want to give you whiplash, but I think it will give you a quick context for the landscape of the industry right now and what kind of options that seniors and their families have as the senior is aging and as their care increases or maybe their health decreases. So first is traditional senior apartments. A good example is Sunnybrook Apartments right here behind the mall. These are just regular apartments like you or I would live in, except that they're designated just for folks 62 and older. Usually they're HUD subsidized. The monthly rent is income-based and can run between about $250 a month to $1,500 a month. these are in high demand. So usually it's a 1 to 3 plus waiting list, 1 to 3 plus years to get into a apartment like this. Next, we have continuing care retirement communities, so CCRCs. A good example is Fairhaven over in Sykesville or Carroll Lutheran Village. This is where you pay a large sum of money to buy into the community. They do have independent living, assisted living, and a nursing home, but traditionally they would like for you to start an independent in order to get in. You're going to be paying anywhere between $100,000 to $1 million as that buy-in. Different communities have different structures where you might get some of that back, you might not. Carroll County is more like 1 to 500,000. If you get out toward like Towson or Columbia, you're going to see it closer to $1 million. And then your monthly service fees are going to be running between $1,000 and $8,000 a month. This is great for seniors who are looking for that like cruise ship living, high amenities. You're getting some help with your instrumental activities of daily living. So that's meals. So you're going to have a couple meals included. You're going to have transportation, trips, activities, housekeeping, linen service, but no hands-on physical help. Next, we have the rental independent living option. A great example is Brightview right over here. Same style of living, that heavy amenities, but instead of doing a large buy-in, you're just paying a higher monthly service. So your monthly rent is going to be higher than it would be at, say, Fairhaven or Carroll Lutheran, but you're not doing a large buy-in fee to get in. But same types of amenities. They're typically a little bit smaller in size, but same type of product. Next, we have standalone assisted living. So two local examples, Sunrise at Carroll or Nova Springs. These assisted living is for people who need assistance with their activities of daily living. So they need physical oversight and help in their day-to-day life. The price range can be anywhere between about $4,500 and $10,000 a month. We have residential living, assisted living. So these are group homes. So this is just like any house in your neighborhood, right? So one of your neighbors decided, I want to open up my house as an assisted living. So they convert it and they bring in a delegating nurse. So it's not a nurse on site, but they hire someone to come in and do the assessments every 45 days. And they turn their house into an assisted living. So you might have 1 or 2 people in a bedroom. Typically, there's between 3 and 12 residents. Technically, you can go up to 16, but the average size is probably 4 to 6 residents with a live-in caregiver. These are more affordable in the $2,000 to $5,000 a month price range. Memory care. So these are, you can see a specialized neighborhood within a larger assisted living, or you can see a full assisted living dedicated strictly to memory care. So Inspirations out off of Deer Park Road, that's a good example of a community that's just memory care, but Brightview has a memory care neighborhood, Sunrise has a memory care neighborhood, kind of nestled into their larger community. There's higher staffing ratios. Training is all designated straight for cognitive decline. They are also secure, so residents cannot get in or out on their own. Monthly rent, you're looking at $6,000 to $10,000 a month. Long-term care. So this is a nursing home. So this is for folks who have chronic illnesses or disabilities, or more likely, they need help and have exhausted all their resources. And why I say that is that Medicaid pays for 90% of patients in nursing homes. And the reason is, in order to live their private pay, you're going to be paying $9,000 to $10,000 a month for a semi-private room. Examples, Longview, Westminster Healthcare Center. And then finally, in-home care. So this is where you have the caregiver come to you. The average cost is $23 an hour. If you need someone 24/7, and this is a very conservative number, close to $16,000 a month to have someone living in the house or there 24/7 providing care. A great example is Right at Home. They're a great agency here in town. Okay, so payer sources. I mean, as I kind of mentioned, it varies from one to the next, but predominantly private pay and long-term care insurance are what pays for most of the options. Medicaid is an option for a couple. The VA aid and attendance, that's a great benefit for veterans if they serve during a qualifying wartime and if they financially qualify. Maryland has a great assisted living group home subsidy. This is for those residential houses. So again, you have to qualify financially, and you have to move into an approved residential group home. So it doesn't apply to all of the options. So that was sort of me getting through it as quickly as possible. And to be completely honest, I could spend hours going over each option and the subcategories within each one. I could spend hours on talking about the long-term care insurance and how to actually get a policy up and going. So you paid into it for all these years. It's not as easy as calling and saying, I'm ready for you to start paying, because they're insurance companies, they don't want to pay. So there's a lot of steps. It's rather difficult. So if your heads are spinning, right? And I love this picture because I feel like this is the picture of my client. So I'm going to go back really quickly to who was affected. And if you remember in the beginning, 25% of folks between 45 and 65, and about 1 in 5 of folks 65 and older. So some of the demographics, most of these caregivers are women. So occasionally it's a man, but for the most part, it's an adult daughter, niece, wife. Her average age is 49. So 45 to 65 is really the sweet spot, but the actual average is 49. She is spending on average almost 25 hours a week caring for that aging person. That's probably a great statistic for your sous chef. If an adult daughter could do more stuff from her house to help the senior, that's awesome. And then this last one, this is a long one, but regardless of employment status, they did a survey and found that the caregivers reported that their positive activities in their lives, right? So if you look at all the positive things happening in your day-to-day life, they were reduced for that caregiver by almost 30% because of the amount of time they're caring for this aging loved one. So at 49, she is likely still working. It's been my experience that she likely still has children in the house, or they're getting ready, they're college searching, they're getting ready to go look at college. And she's managing her own household while things might be starting to go sideways with mom and dad, okay? So, why do it alone? And that's where Windchimes comes in. So Windchimes Windchimes helps families who are having difficulty finding the most appropriate retirement and care options for their aging loved ones. And through counseling and through education and advocacy, I'm able to save my clients money and time, as well as a lot of unneeded stress in finding the most appropriate option for their loved one. So what I've done is I've partnered with most all, not all, but with most all of the types of options that we talked about. So I've partnered with continuing care retirement communities, with the rental, independent, and assisted living communities, standalone assisted livings, the residential group homes, and memory care. So the couple that we talked about that I have not partnered with, so the things that would be excluded would be senior apartments, nursing homes, and in-home care. So I've partnered with the retirement communities, and if I bring a new referral to that community, they pay me a portion of the first month's rent and care charges. So I am able to provide this service completely free for my clients. And my contracts with my partner communities are written such, my fees cannot be rolled down to my clients via extra community fees or elevated rent, so anything of that nature. So it is truly free to use my services. An easy way to explain it is that I'm like a travel agent of retirement communities, right? Okay. So it's no cost. And again, the way that I'm able to keep my lights on is that the communities pay me on the back end once, if I'm able to provide a new referral, once that referral moves in and is there for 30 days. Okay, so how the process works. So initially I'm sitting down, usually it's with the adult child, and I'm really finding out about mom or dad's physical abilities, cognitive status, their finances, that's hugely important, location, and then finally hot buttons. So most of my clients, their parents they want to age in place at home, they don't want to move. And no one goes looking at assisted living with bells on, right? So hot buttons might be, okay, well, mom has this cat, she's had it for 17 years, she's not moving without it. Or Dad likes to go to the casino. He will only agree if he goes somewhere that takes trips to the casino. Bathtubs are a big one. A lot of women in this age group really enjoy soaking in a bath, so finding a community with a bathtub is harder to come by than you might think. I think my craziest one was I had a client whose mom's plants only grew in northern exposure light. So we had to find her either an apartment or a room that had a northern exposed light for these plants, otherwise she's not going. And these things sound funny, and they are funny, but when you think about it, like that's what's important to that senior. And I cannot stress how much I want to make sure that the senior feels like we're wrapping our arms around them and trying to make it as easy as possible, knowing it's not going to be easy. But if there's just a couple things that we can do to make it easier, that is truly what my goal is. So taking the stress and pressure off the adult child, as well as making it even just a little bit easier for the senior. When I go through their care needs, I just have a quick snapshot of a form that I fill out. I'm really going through state of health, diagnoses, medications, physical and cognitive abilities, and really drilling down, because the way that an adult daughter or son sees their parents is not necessarily the way that a caregiver would see them. So really drilling down, what does that mean that you're starting to notice she's slipping? Tell me examples. So I'm trying to get a really good idea. Ideally, I like to lay eyes on my clients, on the senior. I've been doing it long enough that typically spending a couple minutes with them, I can advise the family what level of care they likely need. COVID has made that a little bit more difficult, but I think we're coming to the other side. Finances, so really drilling down on available funds. I don't know if anyone in the room has seen the show Say Yes to the Dress. It's like the number one rule not to break is to put a bride in a dress that she can't afford. So in my position, I definitely do not want to show an adult daughter a beautiful Taj Mahal retirement community if her mom can only afford a residential group home. Do you know what I mean? It's really managing expectations and being very straightforward, because if mom or dad can't afford it, there's no point even talking about it. So I'm going to go back really quick. So once I have a good understanding on the picture, I'm then going to narrow it down to only 2, 3 maximum communities that check all the boxes, right? And after talking to the family about it and really kind of drilling down on those 2 or 3, I'll then set up tours for my clients. I go with them on the community visits. I sit through the sales visits with them. I can provide transportation for mom or dad if they want me to. If they are bringing their parent, we can meet them there if they're running from work or whatnot. I advocate for the family. I take notes and then send them notes afterwards, so they don't have to take notes if they don't want to. And then finally, I just assist them during that decision-making process. I'm not going to tell them where to go or what the better option is, just really giving them all the information that they need to make that decision. Once they do make a decision, I will help get all the paperwork, facilitate a move, get them linked in with elder care attorneys, movers, financial planners, things of that nature, and I can quickly respond to crisis situations.
Kristen, you get 1 minute.
1 minute, yep, wrapping up. So a great time to call Windchimes is when a loved one lands in the rehab, needs a physician, lets them know they need 24-hour care, has questions about paying for senior living, and this last one, before researching on your own. That's so important because if you've already started calling and talking to communities, it's cut me out. It would be a conflict of interest for me to get involved then. So truly the best time to call is before you call anyone else. And that's it. So please let me know if there's anyone, any friends or family that I can help. A great way for the community to help me is just to spread the word. There are a lot of people doing what I'm doing, although it's new to this area. There isn't anyone living here and really serving Carroll County from right here. So there are other folks who come here, but they have much larger territories, and not a lot of people know services like mine exist. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Kristen. So I'm sure we have lots of questions, as you can hear a pin drop through most of this presentation, as many of us are approaching or past the 49 average age where this is becoming an issue. So, anybody have questions? Dave Baldwin from Furnace Hills.
So, my brother takes care of my mother. My mother's 97, so takes care of my brother. My brother takes care of her. Took his 3-car garage, turned it into a beautiful mother-in-law apartment. He's the youngest child in the sibling rank. And my wife took care of her mother. She's the youngest. Did you found that to be sort of a commonality too, that the person who kind of gets either by, just chance or whatever, by designation, it's usually the younger children that take care of the parents?
I haven't seen that specific trend, although there might be something to that, especially if they're younger in age and more able. But that is it's an interesting observation. I think it's impressive that your brother is doing it, because there are men who are doing it. They're just it's a much smaller.
Well, he would not, without his wife, it would be a debacle.
Sure. I think it's the nurturing that we have in us, yeah. Any other questions?
Yes, Scott Singleton.
You mentioned a lot of the options that a senior, someone caring for a senior would have. Aging in place, we know, is a term, and is that something that you might recommend for a family if you felt that was the best option, is to just age in place until maybe the situation changed?
Yeah, absolutely. So more often than not, what you're seeing is that the senior wants to age in place. They want to be in their house. And a lot of times families are feeling like, well, I don't care what they want. But you have to remember, a senior is not a child. They are an adult. And that is a decision that they are able to make, even if there are negative implications. We all make bad decisions all the time, right? They're allowed to make their own decisions, even if it's maybe a negative decision. So in cases like that, I'm sending the family as much information as I can about what they can put in place as far as Meals on Wheels. The state of Maryland has a great thing that calls and checks on seniors every day. This would be a situation where I would certainly refer a meal service. But I urge the family to make a plan. Even if mom's going to stay at home, that's the plan. Let's at least go out and look at options so that if mom lands in the hospital, you're not scrambling. And I cannot tell you how many times that I've seen this play out. So yes, let's get it, mom or dad set up to age in place as well as possible, but have a plan in place in the event that something goes sideways.
Is this a cultural phenomenon among a certain demographic, this idea that you don't have intergenerational families anymore, like that you send your parents off to go live somewhere else? Do you find that that's a cultural, like are there certain types of demographics where you don't even have this conversation because they don't even consider it?
Yeah, so it's interesting that you say that. There was a young woman from China who was in one of my classes at Hopkins for the certificate on aging, and she told me that even in her culture, they're starting to see that you're not going to see the intergenerational family households anymore, and there's lots of books about it. Some of the things that come into play with that are that families are moving away from each other. That was a big key piece of that, so that I happen to live in the same county as my parents, but that's not necessarily the norm anymore. So the adult children might not be in the same geographical area. But yes, and I can't cite it, but there have been a lot of books written about it, that we have moved to this new place where parents are it doesn't happen as often that they're living with their adult children.
Yeah.
So does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it sounds like it's a sort of westernization phenomenon.
Right.
A bit. Any other questions? Yes.
My dad, 91, was with me, that I was telling you earlier. And if we have an issue sometime and we want to go away for just maybe a couple days, is there a service that you provide, or do you know of any, or maybe you're considering in the future, just a temporary type of senior assistance, something to that effect?
Yeah, so some communities do allow respite stays. Typically they're looking for 30 days because there is so much documentation and there's a lot that goes into a move-in. So they're looking for 30 days just so it makes sense for them from a financial perspective. There is a community in Baltimore County that will do weekends, which I think is that's great for folks that just want to maybe run down to the beach and back. The other alternative, you're paying a premium, but to get some in-home care, so someone coming out to the house while you're gone. Yep. Yeah.
Or make a meal.
That's typically the easiest way to go if you're just going on maybe like a week-long vacation.
Yeah, Rick, what about?
You mentioned the long-term care insurance, I mean, and none of us have seen the end result, right? But should it be a tool in the tool shed, a tool in the tool shed, let's say, for looking at this age, looking forward?
So I've been in the industry since about 2008, and I'll tell you, there was a time until probably 2016, and I still very occasionally see it, but there were some policies that were sold in the late 90s and early 2000s that are like the Cadillac policies. These things are like a gold mine. And in that case, if someone was able to get that type of policy, I would say absolutely. I'm talking like $350 a day for the rest of your life. They don't sell them like that anymore. So I think working with your financial planner, because to answer your question in a short answer, I would say yes, I think it's a worthwhile investment. But I have also, in talking to my financial planner, my husband and I starting early enough that we're sort of putting our money, we are allocating our money in a way that we are going to be funding our own long-term care. Does that make sense? So I think everyone's situation, and depending on when you start looking at that, being 35 versus 55, so it's a little bit different for everyone.
Do you help people with selecting those types of policies?
No,
Okay.
I do not. So typically by the time they've gotten to me, they're 80 plus. So a long-term care policy was very likely they wouldn't be able to get one. What I do end up doing is referring adult children out to a couple different financial planners in the area that I'm very comfortable with, because once they see the sticker shock, right, from moving mom, it's sort of like ding, 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 I should probably be getting a policy or at least talking about it to someone.
And then we only have time for one more question anyway, but you've already kind of said what we can do to help you as a community, but besides referral sources, anything else in terms of spreading the word about you, a website, social media accounts that we can share?
Social media always, yes. Facebook predominantly. I'm also on LinkedIn. But yeah, I would love that. I try to stay as present as possible on social media. So yeah, sharing and liking, that's always a huge help.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you very much.
All right, our presenters today all got their 1 Million Cups insulated travel mugs for presenting. If you out there are interested in presenting to 1 Million Cups Westminster, please apply at 1millionccups.com/Westminster. Thank you again to Startup Portal here at Westminster for hosting the event today here in person. Thank you to Jeannie Bird Baking Company for providing the baked goods, and thank you to Furnace Hills Coffee for providing the coffee. And don't forget, you can go online at furnacehills.com to get that 25% discount with the code 1MC Westminster. And then next week, next week's sort of a theme. We have like a gaming theme next week. We have Tables and Towers, which is a tabletop and PC gaming facility here at Town Mall in Westminster. And we have Save Point, which is a free play arcade based in Union Bridge, and they will both be here. The owners of both of those businesses will be here presenting their companies, their businesses to the community. Thank you all very much. We'll see you again next Wednesday.